The fence line feud. My ranch sat right at the border of a new neighborhood that popped up a few years ago. The land used to be open pasture, quiet and peaceful. Then came the HOA folks. New houses, perfect lawns, shiny mailboxes, and a rule book thick enough to choke a bull. At first I tried to be neighborly. I waved when they drove by in their golf carts, even helped one family dig a trench for their water line. But then came Karen. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Hair sprayed stiff, sunglasses big enough to hide behind, and a voice sharp enough to cut barbed wire. She didn't like my cows, didn't like the smell, didn't like the mooing, didn't like me. One morning she drove up to my gate in her spotless SUV and honked until I came out. "You need to move your fence," she said, tapping her clipboard. "It's an eyesore and it violates HOA visual guidelines." I stared at her, confused. "Ma'am," I said, "this fence has been here since before your subdivision existed. This is my property line." Karen pursed her lips. "We've decided it ruins the view. The HOA board voted last week. You'll need to adjust it." I told her calmly that her HOA rules stopped at her property line, and this was still ranch land. She didn't like that answer. She drove off muttering something about bringing it up with the county. I didn't think much of it after that. Until one morning, a week later, I walked out and saw my fence, cut clean through in 3 places. Barbed wire lay coiled on the ground. Posts knocked over, and tracks from a small trailer leading back toward the neighborhood. My stomach sank. I didn't need to guess who did it, and just as I feared, a few hours later, my cows found the open path and wandered straight through the gap. The smell of grass and freshly watered lawns was too much for them to resist. Next thing I knew, I had 15 cows stomping through Karen's perfectly manicured yard, chewing her roses, knocking over her bird fountain and leaving. Well, gifts all over her driveway. By the time I caught up, Karen was outside screaming like a siren. "Get them out of here! They're destroying everything." I whistled, herded a few back toward the road, and tried to keep calm. "Can't control where they go when my fence is missing," I said. Loud enough for the neighbors to hear, Karen's face went red. "I'll call the sheriff. This is animal trespassing." "Good," I said. "Tell him to bring a tape measure. We'll see whose landline got cut." The sheriff arrived 20 minutes later, a big man named Sheriff Douglas, who'd known me for years. He parked, got out, and took one look at the mess before shaking his head. "Morning, Tom," he said to me. "Morning, Sheriff. You might want to talk to her." I nodded toward Karen, who was still fuming. Karen marched over, waving her phone. "I have photos. His animals destroyed my property." Sheriff Douglas held up a hand. "Ma'am, slow down. Whose fence got cut?" Karen paused. "It's irrelevant. The cows came onto my yard." He turned to me. "Fence yours, Tom?" "Yes, sir. Been there for 30 years. He walked over, looked at the posts, and spotted the clean wire cuts. These weren't broken by cows. These were cut with tools. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. The sheriff sighed. "Ma'am, did you cut this fence?" Karen crossed her arms. It was unsightly. "The HOA has standards." He took out his notebook. "Ma'am, tampering with private fencing is vandalism. And since livestock got loose, you're liable for damages under county law." Her jaw dropped. "Me, they're his cows." "Ma'am," the sheriff said firmly, "his cows were behind that fence until someone cut it." She went silent. You could almost hear her pride cracking like glass. The sheriff wrote her a citation right there. "You'll need to pay for the damage, replace the fencing, and cover the fine. And I suggest you don't touch another man's fence again." Karen looked like she was about to explode. As I herded my cows back toward the gate, I couldn't help but chuckle. My neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, probably enjoying every second. I patched up the fence that afternoon, humming to myself. The sun was setting over the ranch, and I felt something sweet in the air. Not just the smell of hay, but the smell of karma finally working right. But I didn't know. Then, Karen wasn't done yet. The HOA queen had a plan brewing, and she was about to make things worse than either of us could imagine. Karen strikes back. After that day, I thought things would quiet down. The fence was fixed, the cows were content, and the sheriff's fine should have been enough to teach Karen a lesson. But Karen wasn't the kind of woman who took humiliation lightly. For the next few days, I noticed her driving slowly along the fence line, phone in hand, snapping pictures. Sometimes she had another lady from the HOA board with her. They'd whisper, point at things, and drive off. Then came the letters. The first envelope was taped to my gate. Notice of violation, unsightly property. It claimed my barn's color did not conform with the community aesthetic. I laughed so hard I almost fell off the tractor. I didn't even live in their HOA zone. My land was county ranch land, grandfathered long before their development existed. Still, the letters kept coming, each one more ridiculous than the last. Noise complaint, excessive mooing after 9 p.m. Unauthorized animals visible from HOA property. Failure to maintain lawn appearance per community standards. They were obviously Karen's doing. She was trying to bury me in paper until I gave up, or sold my ranch to improve the neighborhood image. She didn't know me very well. After the 5th letter, I took them straight to the county office. The clerk, an older woman named Janice, nearly snorted her coffee when she read them. "Tom, she's crazy if she thinks HOA rules apply to county ag land," she said. "You're fully exempt. I'll send her a notice to back off." I thanked her, but I knew Karen wouldn't stop with paper threats. That evening, I was fixing a water trough when my neighbor Earl pulled up in his old Ford truck. He lived a few houses down from Karen and had been watching the chaos unfold. "You ain't gonna believe this," he said, stepping out. "Karen's telling everyone at the HOA meeting that you're running an illegal livestock operation." I raised an eyebrow. "Illegal? I've got permits, records, taxes, all clean." "Doesn't matter," Earl said. "She's trying to get the board to pressure the county for an inspection." Sure enough, a week later, a white pickup with the county seal rolled down my drive. A man stepped out, clipboard in hand, polite but cautious. "Afternoon, sir," he said. "Got a complaint from the HOA about your livestock operations. Mind if I take a look?" I smiled. "Not at all." "Come on," I showed him everything. Feed records, vet checks, fencing logs. He even inspected the water source and pasture rotation plan. The man nodded, impressed. "Mr. Lawson," he said, "your setup's cleaner than half the ranches I've seen. I'll be filing this complaint as unfounded." He left me with a handshake and a friendly grin, but the moment he drove off, I saw Karen standing by the end of the cul-de-sac, watching, her arms crossed. Even from that distance, I could feel the hate in her stare. A few nights later, things escalated. I woke up around midnight to the sound of my dogs barking. When I stepped out with a flashlight, I saw car headlights near the fence, same spot Karen had cut before. I ran down the path, boots kicking dust. The car took off before I reached it, tires squealing. I shined my light on the fence and my gut twisted. Someone had thrown bags of trash, HOA-branded yard waste bags, over my fence right into the pasture. Broken glass, lawn clippings, even a few plastic decorations. Dangerous stuff for cattle. I took pictures of everything and called the sheriff. By the time he arrived, the car was long gone, but he knew what was up. "Same person?" he asked. "Who else?" I said. He frowned. "I'll make a report. If it keeps up, we'll start surveillance." "Don't worry, Tom. We'll catch whoever's behind this." I nodded, but that night I didn't sleep much. Because I realized something deeper. This wasn't just about the fence anymore. Karen had made it personal. She wanted me gone. 2 days later, I decided enough was enough. If Karen wanted a war, she'd get one. But by the book, I filed a civil complaint with the county for property damage and harassment, attaching every photo, every letter, and every report. Janice from the county clerk's office helped me file it under nuisance interference. Within a week, Karen received a court summons. The day she got served, I happened to be driving by. She was standing in her driveway, staring at the papers, red-faced and trembling. Earl later told me she spent the next HOA meeting shouting that she was being targeted by a cowboy conspiracy. I didn't attend, of course. I had fences to mend and work to do. But word spread fast. Neighbors started realizing who was really causing the drama. Some even came by to apologize for not speaking up sooner, and that's when things started to turn. Because as the town learned more, Karen's perfect image began to crumble. She wasn't ready to accept it, though. Not yet. In her mind, she was still queen of the HOA, and queens don't go down without a fight. But the next move she made would backfire so spectacularly, even I couldn't have planned it better. The HOA meeting showdown. By the time Karen got that court summons, the neighborhood was buzzing. Half the folks in the subdivision thought she'd gone too far. The other half didn't want to get on her bad side. She'd ruled that HOA board like a dictator for years, writing fines for mailbox colors, banning pickup trucks, even arguing about Christmas lights being too bright. So when she called for a special emergency HOA meeting, everyone showed up. And thanks to Earl, I heard all about it. You should come, he said, grinning. You don't have to say a word. Just being there will drive her nuts. I wasn't one for drama. But after all she'd done, the cut fence, the fake complaints, the trash dump, I figured it was time to face this head-on. So that Thursday evening, I cleaned my boots, put on my old ranch jacket, and drove down to the community clubhouse. The parking lot was packed. Every lawn-perfect neighbor was there, clutching coffee cups and whispering. When I walked in, the room went quiet. You could feel the tension. Karen was at the front, her HOA clipboard in hand like a sword. She froze for a second when she saw me walk through the door, but quickly plastered on that tight smile of hers. Well, everyone, she said loudly, it seems we have a guest from outside our community tonight. I tipped my hat. Evening, folks, she turned to the crowd. As you all know, the ranch next door has caused numerous issues: noise, odor, escaped animals, and property damage. A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably. One man whispered, "Didn't she cut his fence?" Karen shot him a glare and continued, "It's time we discuss collective action. I propose a formal petition to the county to revoke his agricultural status." I crossed my arms. "You mean the same agricultural status that's been here since before your houses existed?" Karen ignored me. "This is about protecting property values. We can't have livestock next to a residential area." That's when Earl stood up. "Karen, you moved next to his ranch, not the other way around." The room murmured in agreement. Karen's smile twitched. "Mr. Lawson has shown hostility to our community standards. He's even filed a baseless lawsuit against me personally." I stepped forward. "Not baseless. You cut my fence. Sheriff's report says so." Her face flushed. "That was a misunderstanding. The fence was an eyesore." Earl chuckled. "A misunderstanding that let 15 cows into your petunias, huh?" Laughter rippled through the room. Karen's nostrils flared. "This meeting is out of order," she shouted. "If you people don't care about the HOA's image, then you deserve what happens next." At that exact moment, the door opened, and in walked Sheriff Douglas, every head turned. He nodded politely. "Evening, everyone." "Sorry to interrupt." I heard my name come up. Karen's jaw dropped. "Sheriff! What are you doing here?" He held up a folder, following up on ongoing property damage reports. "Also, since this meeting's about Mr. Lawson, I thought I'd clarify some facts." He opened the folder and read, "On record, fence tampering. Admission by Mrs. Karen Delaney. Citation issued. Fine paid. Confirmed property line valid." You could have heard a pin drop. Karen sputtered. "That's private information." The sheriff smiled slightly. "Public record, ma'am. Anyone can request it." He closed the folder and looked around. "Mr. Lawson's ranch operates legally. County inspection cleared him last week. Any further interference from the HOA will be considered harassment under municipal law." Karen's face was crimson. "You can't talk to us like that. We're an official homeowners association." "Sure," the sheriff said calmly, "but your authority ends at your boundary. And that fence marks it." He tipped his hat to me. "Evening, Tom. Keep those cows happy." Then he walked out, leaving silence in his wake. Karen stood there, trembling, gripping her clipboard so hard her knuckles turned white. Finally, one of the board members, a quiet older lady named Margaret, stood up. "Karen," she said softly, "you've embarrassed this entire community. Maybe it's time you step down as HOA president." Karen blinked. You can't be serious." But Margaret was. A few more hands went up in agreement, then more. Before long, almost every person in the room had raised a hand, except Karen. Of course. Her power was gone, right there in front of everyone. She threw her clipboard down and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. Earl leaned over to me and whispered, "Well, that was worth coming to." I couldn't help but grin. The next morning, I found something taped to my gate again. But this time, it wasn't a complaint or threat. It was a note from Margaret. "Mr. Lawson, on behalf of the HOA board, we apologize for everything that's happened. Karen is no longer part of the board. We'd like to make peace between our communities. Sincerely, the new HOA president." I read it twice and smiled. Maybe things were finally settling down. But later that evening, Earl came by with a worried look. "Tom," he said, "Karen ain't done yet. She's been talking to a lawyer out of town, says she's going to sue the cowboy into the dirt." I sighed. Figures. Some folks just can't quit. Little did I know, Karen's final move would drag the whole county into it, and it would end in a way nobody saw coming. The lawsuit and the live stream. It had been a quiet 2 weeks since Karen's meltdown at the HOA meeting. The new board president, Margaret, turned out to be fair and decent. She told everyone to leave me and my ranch alone, and peace finally seemed to settle in. But peace never lasts long when Karen's involved. One Tuesday morning, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was thick, too thick for good news. I opened it and read, "Notice of legal action plaintiff Karen Delaney, defendant Thomas Lawson. Cause, emotional distress, property damage, and community devaluation." I almost laughed out loud. She was suing me again, for the same cows that invaded her yard because she cut the fence. My lawyer, Ben Harris, was a no-nonsense country guy. I called him right away. He read the letter, sighed, and said, "Tom, this is pure nonsense, but we'll handle it. Don't worry." He filed a counterclaim for harassment and false allegations, and we waited for the court date. Meanwhile, word spread fast through town. Everyone knew about the old Karen versus cowboy drama, and now that it was heading to court, the gossip mill was running wild. Local Facebook groups lit up with comments, "Didn't she cut his fence first? She's suing him? That's bold. Grab popcorn, this is better than TV." Earl even made a joke, "Tom, you should sell tickets to the courthouse." But then something strange happened. A week before the trial, Karen started posting online. She filmed herself standing by the same fence, ranting into her phone about animal abuse and illegal farming. She tagged the county, the sheriff's department, even a few local news pages. Most folks ignored her, but a few troublemakers started sharing the videos. Soon enough, she had a small online following cheering her on, calling me the ranch bully. At first, I let it slide, but when she posted a video showing my property and the exact location of my gates, Ben stepped in. "That's enough," he said. "She's violating privacy law now. We'll use this." The day of the court hearing came fast. The small county courthouse was packed. Locals filled every seat, whispering like it was a show. Even Sheriff Douglas sat in the back, arms crossed, clearly curious how this would go. Karen strutted in, wearing a bright pink blazer and a smug grin. Her lawyer, a nervous-looking man from out of town, carried a stack of printed screenshots. Ben leaned toward me and whispered, "Relax. Tom, let her talk herself into a corner." And that's exactly what happened. When the judge asked Karen to explain her case, she launched into a 20-minute speech. She accused me of malicious livestock management, of intentional fence neglect, and of psychological harm caused by bovine trespass. The courtroom was dead silent, until Earl, sitting behind me, snorted, trying to hold in laughter. Karen's lawyer looked miserable. The judge finally interrupted, "Mrs. Delaney, do you have proof of these claims?" Karen nodded proudly. "Yes, Your Honor, I have video evidence." She plugged her phone into the projector. Up popped her social media videos, shaky footage of my ranch, me fixing a fence, and one clip of my cows grazing peacefully. The judge frowned. Mrs. Delaney, these animals appear healthy and contained. Karen waved her hand. That's not the point. He humiliated me in front of the community. My yard was ruined. Ben stood up. Your Honor, if I may, he pulled out his own binder. Exhibit A, Sheriff's report confirming Mrs. Delaney cut the defendant's fence. Exhibit B, her public admission in HOA meeting minutes. Exhibit C, her online videos, including defamatory statements and property exposure. The judge's eyebrows rose higher with every page. Karen's face turned pale. Mrs. Delaney, the judge said slowly, did you or did you not cut the defendant's fence? Karen stammered, I was protecting our neighborhood's image. So you admit you damaged his property? Well, yes, but that's enough, the judge said, lowering his gavel. Case dismissed. Defendant not liable. Plaintiff is ordered to pay court costs and a $2,000 fine for harassment and defamation. The room erupted in murmurs. Karen froze, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. Her lawyer quietly gathered his things and walked out. As we stepped outside, reporters from the local paper were already waiting. Apparently, someone had been live-streaming the trial from inside. Within hours, clips of the judge scolding Karen went viral. The caption read, Her Karen loses her case to local rancher, justice served. Even the sheriff got a laugh when he saw it. By evening, Karen's face was plastered all over Facebook and TikTok memes. One photo of her mid-yell had the caption, You can't find a cow, Karen. It spread like wildfire. Margaret called me later that night laughing. Tom, you've become a local hero. People are saying you should run for county commissioner. I told her, I'll stick to cows, thanks. Still, I couldn't help but smile. For once, the truth had played out perfectly in front of everyone, but as peaceful as it felt, there was one last thing I had to do, something that would put the whole feud to rest for good. Because while the world laughed at Karen online, I knew the real victory wasn't about revenge. It was about rebuilding that fence one last time, not just with wood and wire, but with closure. The Fence of Peace. A few weeks passed after the courtroom fiasco. Life on the ranch returned to its easy rhythm. Sunrise chores, coffee on the porch, the low hum of cattle and wind through the grass. It felt good again. For the first time in months, nobody was honking at my gate, nobody was taking pictures, and no letters were taped to my fence. Karen, though. She'd gone quiet. From what Earl told me, she'd resigned from every HOA committee, shut down her social media, and spent most days indoors with the curtains drawn. Her bright pink SUV used to be everywhere. Now it sat in her driveway, dusty and forgotten. It wasn't that I wanted her ruined. I just wanted peace. One morning, I was out fixing a section of the north fence when I noticed movement near the edge of the neighborhood. A figure in a floppy hat and garden gloves was kneeling in the grass, trimming plants along the property line. It took me a second to realize. It was Karen. I hesitated. The old instinct told me to turn away, but something in me said otherwise. So I walked over, slow and steady. She saw me coming, froze for a second, then went back to trimming the weeds. Morning, I said softly. She didn't look up. Morning? Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was tired, like the fight had gone out of her. I leaned against the fence post. Garden looks nice. Karen let out a breath. Trying to make it right, she said. Most of the neighbors stopped talking to me. HOA voted me out completely. I nodded. Heard about that. She finally looked at me, eyes red, no makeup, no armor left. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said. The fence, the cows, the court. I just wanted things to look perfect around here. Guess I forgot that people ain't perfect. For the first time, I saw something in her I hadn't seen before. Humility. I get it, I said. You wanted peace and order, but this land's been here a long time, Karen. Sometimes you just gotta let nature be what it is. She nodded slowly, staring at the horizon. You know, my husband wanted to move out here for the view. Said he liked seeing the open pasture. I guess I tried too hard to control it. There was a long pause. The air felt lighter than it had in months. Then she said quietly, Tom, I'm sorry, truly. I took off my hat and nodded once. Apology accepted. A few days later, I started rebuilding the final section of the fence that had been damaged the most during the chaos. I didn't expect help, but help came anyway. One morning, a few HOA folks showed up with gloves and tools. Margaret led the group, smiling. "Figured it was time we helped mend what got broken," she said. Earl came by with his old truck full of wood posts. "Got enough lumber to build a wall between you and every Karen in town," he joked. Even Karen showed up quietly at the edge of the group, holding a roll of wire. She didn't say much, just worked alongside everyone else. We spent the whole day out there under the sun, hammering, stretching wire, setting posts. Laughter replaced the bitterness that used to hang in the air. By sunset, the new fence stood strong, a perfect line between the ranch and the neighborhood, clean and sturdy, but not a wall. Just a boundary that said, "This is yours and this is mine." When it was done, Karen walked up beside me, wiping her hands. "It's better this way," she said. "Strong but not ugly." "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Funny how a fence can keep things apart, but still bring people together." She smiled faintly. "Guess it just depends on how you build it." A few weeks later, I hosted a small barbecue by the pasture. Neighbors came, kids running around, music playing, everyone laughing. It was the first time both sides of the fence shared a meal together. Even Karen stopped by. She brought a dish of homemade peach cobbler. When she handed it to me, I noticed her old HOA badge was gone for good. "This time," she said with a shy grin, "no rules, just dessert." We all laughed. That evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the fields gold, I looked around and realized how far we'd come. From fences cut and tempers flared to something close to peace. The cows grazed quietly near the boundary, the fence glinting in the light. The air smelled of smoke and sweet fruit pie. And for once, there were no arguments, no fines, no lawsuits. Just neighbors, finally acting like neighbors. Later that night, as everyone drove home, I stood by that fence one last time. The moonlight hit the wire, and I ran my hand along it, feeling the strength of it. The strength built not from anger, but from understanding. Karen's voice echoed faintly in my mind. "Guess it depends on how you build it." She was right, because fences don't just divide land. Sometimes they remind people where respect begins, and where peace can finally grow. And as the crickets started singing in the dark, I smiled, tipped my hat, and whispered to the quiet fields, "Good fences make good neighbors, and even better stories."